Okay, yeah, welcome. So I'm going to give a moment for folks to settle in, and then we'll get started. But we are live in the Zoom, and we're live on YouTube. And we've already got some comments on YouTube. Out with Dan's here. So, Dan. Great. Well, let me take this down. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Here we are at WeHo Reads, Going Dark to Bring Light, presented by the City of West Hollywood, produced by Bookswell. I'm Cody Cisco. I'm your host tonight, and I am so honored to welcome four very talented writers in the crime, mystery, thriller, suspense genres. Let me give you a quick round of introductions so people know who we have with us tonight. Jennifer Chow is a Lefty-Award nominee and the author of the Magical Fortune Cookie novels, the LA Night Market Mysteries, and the Sassy Cat series. Welcome, Jennifer. We have Nicholas George, who is the author of A Walk Through England mystery series and another series forthcoming, which we'll hear about. Welcome, Nick. Tori Eldridge is the author of Kaua'i Storm and the Lily Wong Thrillers, including The Ninja Daughter that kicked it all off, nominated for the Anthony, Lefty, and Macavity Awards, and winner of the 2021 Crimson Scribe for the Best Book of the Year award. Welcome, Tori. It's great to see you.
Thanks, mahalo.
And welcome to Georgia Jeffries, the USC School of Cinematic Arts professor and award-winning author of The Younger Girl, a Midwest noir based on a true crime of family murder and betrayal that crosses three generations. Welcome, Georgia. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you.
Well, we're going to get into discussion about your characters and your work very soon, but first, I want to invite back to the panel Mike J from the City of West Hollywood Arts Division. Mike, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much, Cody, and thank you to our authors, and thank you to everybody in the audience. We are so glad that you can join us for this, which is our final event for 2025. We will be launching next year's series in February, so make sure that you're signed up for our mailing list at weho.org/arts so you can get the scoop on what's going to be happening. We're working on the lineup now. It's going to be fabulous. We, of course, want to acknowledge that the land upon which the city of West Hollywood is located is the unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva and Gabrielino Kizh peoples. And I encourage you all to take a moment to honor those who were the original caretakers of the lands upon which you are at right now. I know you're all over the place. And then just a warning, our authors are all fabulous and some of them might have some explicit content. If you are at all sensitive to that, this would be a good time to log off. I'm Mike Che. I work for the City of West Hollywood. We are so pleased and thankful that we have a city council that believes in the arts, believes in the power of the arts, and then also puts money behind it, which is the most important thing. So they funded this series. Cody does a great job running it for us. And we do want to thank our city council and our arts commission for their continued support. Another program of the city is our Poet Laureate program. And we have our current and fifth Poet Laureate, Jen Cheng, who is going to open tonight's evening with a poem. So I will turn it over to her. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate the chance to share a poem with this wonderful panel of creatives and authors. Love the topic for tonight, so I'm bringing you my crime poem. It's called Letter to the Very Hungry Caterpillar. Look, you've got amazing PR with a hardcover book getting all the children to think you're cute for eating our food. I wouldn't mind sharing if you were not such a destructive invader. In fact, I let you freely eat at my tall mint plant, which was so abundant, so plentiful, that I was harvesting and giving away the bounty to humans twice a week. But now you've invited so many of your friends like a bad, sloppy, drunk teen party and ruined so many of the leaves made holy with your nibbles. What are you, Goldilocks? Why don't you eat a whole mint leaf? A hole there, another hole elsewhere, tasting all the leaves. The once strong, abundant shelter and food for you is now less than half of what it used to be. Was it greed or carelessness that motivates your destruction? Fine. The big canopy of mint could take some hits, but no, not my bok choy, not my fragrant rare purple basil. I was willing for us to coexist, but you've done it. You've made me a NIMBY. This morning, I moved 2 of your comrades to the neighbor's fence where plenty of weeds grow to feed you. But when I found a 3rd one chomping at the base of the mint, that one, acting like a logger, killing a beautiful forest, that one got what was coming. Pop, 6, squish, that one ran into my scissors. Don't say I didn't warn you. My tiny urban garden, nurtured for the last 5 years with organic soil, a footprint smaller than 2 card tables, but so giving in nourishment, my tiny urban garden is not for your colonial takeover. Today, I killed only 1 of 3, but if you don't move along and let my mint and other plants survive, I will be a nasty Greek god extracting you to brutal exposure as food for the birds. That is, until another one of you runs into my scissors. Thank you. I want to share that there's a holiday poetry hotline happening this month and encourage you all to check it out. You can call 24/7 at 310-853-3952. There's a new poem each week from our poet laureate roster of the West Hollywood History of Poet Laureates. Thank you so much.
Cody, you're muted.
I said so many wonderful things just now. Let me repeat them. I said, thank you, Jen, so much for that poem. We had a crime, a culprit, a motive, and in the end, justice. Thank you.
Oh.
Well, great. I'd like to get now to our discussion, and I want to start us off talking about the characters that you all bring to life, the characters that you craft and that you put into your works. And let's start maybe with you, Jennifer, and share with us, one of your characters, the crime that spurs them into action, and really what inspired you to write about this person.
Okay, so in my newest series, it's the Magical Fortune Cookie Mysteries. So I have a protagonist named Felicity Jin, and I love her because she works in an enchanted bake shop. She works with her mom, and each member of the Jin family has a magical talent for baking. And what they do is they put happiness in her treats. So it takes a while for Felicity to find her signature recipe, and she finds it in crafting a fortune cookie. But not only does her magical power extend to like the enchantment of cookies to eat, but her messages come true. So when she handwrites people's fortunes, they come true. Unfortunately, book 1 in the series is called Ill-Fated Fortune because the customer that gets that fortune suffers a bad fate. His body winds up in the alley in the back of the bakery. And when the police find the body and they find a fortune cookie message next to it, Felicity is in hot trouble. And so she's there to clear her name and just kind of restore order in her life and also to kind of solve that case.
Thank you. Yes, I guess this is a very cozy book. I loved it, and when I got to the end, I was so excited to see that there's a recipe for the fortune cookies that I'm definitely going to try this baking season. Thank you, Jennifer. Nick, let's go with you next. And it's up to you. I've read, your A Walk Through England mystery series, but I know you also have another series out, so I'd love to hear about some of your characters.
Right. Well, I started writing mysteries. Really, it was kind of kicked off. I've always loved mysteries my entire life, but I was kicked off because I was on a walk in England, a group walk, and I mentioned that I was a writer, and one of the other walkers said, Nick, you should write a murder mystery based on this walk. And I thought, well, I was having trouble with the book I was writing at that time, as I think, Cody, you know. And so I thought, well, I'll do that. So I came back home and I hammered out the first draft of the book in about 5 weeks. And I really enjoyed it. And it actually then went on, and I wrote 3 of them. And I was able to then get a contract for it. And they're now in the process of being published. And the main character of these mysteries are somewhat like me. It's an older gay man who loves walking for relaxation and exercise, just like I do. And he loves England. So he goes to England every year and walks in a group walk there. But unlike me, I didn't want to make him exactly like me. He is a former homicide detective from San Diego. His name is Rick Chasen, by the way. He's called Chase. And he's also a big baseball fan, which I'm not. So that got me launched on that series, which was it's a lot of fun to write. And then I started another one based on my love of another. I have another love, which is rock and roll music. I love rock and roll, and so I started a series where the main character is a rock and roll star from the 70s and 80s. And he and his wife, who was the lead singer in his band, they were a one-hit wonder. They had a big hit, and now they're retired. They're living in the Central California coast. And his name is Adam Perel. So I have a second series now, which is the Adam Perel series.
Great. And for the Walk Through England series, while he's on this walk, what happens? Maybe just give us a
Of course, they're
tease.
murder mysteries, so of course murders happen, and he's able to employ his expertise as a homicide detective and work with local authorities to help find out who the murderer is. And they were challenged to write because they buck a lot of the conventions of mysteries, where you had basically a group of people come together on this walk who don't know one another.
Mm.
And they don't share a common history or a common location or anything like that. So the big question is, why would one of them kill another person? So that was probably the biggest challenge in writing those.
Great, thank you. Tori, let's talk about your books. I first read your Lily Wong series, but you've got a new one out. I see it behind you, Kaua'i Storm. Tell us about the character from that book.
Oh, okay. Well, like Nicholas, I do tend to draw from my own life. So the Lily Wong series and the Ranger Makalani Pahukula series, they both draw from my heritage. So starting with Lily Wong, she is a Chinese Norwegian modern day ninja who is also a protector and rescuer of women and children from violent situations. And she works with a women's shelter in Los Angeles. And so that is very action-packed and authentic ninja because I hold a fifth-degree black belt in that. But this is my new book right now, and that's Kaua'i Storm, and this came out in May. And Kaua'i Storm has a native Hawaiian and also mixed race protagonist. She's a 6-foot majestic Hawaiian strong woman, right? And she's a ranger in Oregon. And she's coming back to Kauai for her grandmother, her tutu's, that's a grandmother in Hawaiian, her tutu's 85th birthday. But instead of finding, her ohana, her family, doing wonderfully as she expects, she finds 2 of her cousins missing and her family's traditional Hawaiian homesteading way of life at risk. And everything goes to heck from there. And Makalani is the eldest of the eldest of Tutu's children. And she's one of these people who really feels a kuleana, a responsibility to take care of everything. Everything is her responsibility, including finding her missing cousins and also healing her family. But it's difficult for her because she's been away on the mainland for a very long time. And so Kaua'i Storm is very much a fish out of water, a generational family drama. So it draws on those very common themes that, everybody can relate to. But at the same time, it is extremely immersive and authentic and will immerse the readers in a Hawaii they have never known.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's a very clear picture, and I think we all know that. Well, this is the time of the year when we're thinking about family a lot, and and getting back
Indeed.
together with our families, and everything that goes along with that.
I know. I tend to, go back to that theme of generational family. I mean, right now, my husband and I are living with our son's family to
Mm,
help care for our grandchildren.
mm,
So, the generational family and also multicultural family.
hmm.
There's my background. I'm from Honolulu. My daughter-in-law is from Hong Kong, like Lily Wong's mother. So it's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah. Thank you, Tori. And Georgia, let's hear about the younger girl. And a maybe important point to note is younger's the last name. Oh wait, you're on mute, Georgia. Let's see if you can unmute uh, and then we'll hear
And
about
here we are.
here we are.
Thank you. Yes, in a sense, it's a double entendre in a way as well. But I think it's an interesting question. And first, I was going to introduce you to Joanna Giordano because the story opens in the real story in terms of the twists and turns of the past intercutting and interfacing with the present in 1996. So Joanna Giordano is the adult daughter, 42-year-old daughter of a very hard drinking father whom she knew is deeply depressed and grieving through most of her childhood. What she did not learn until she was almost 10 years old was that his beloved elder sister, Eldine Younger, had been murdered when he was only a child. So, and she discovered that because she was very curious and looked underneath some family albums that had yellowed tabloid front pages with the headline, Heiress Murdered, Married Man Held. So what did this mean? She didn't know until she became an adult and then learned of the deep grief that her father still had, and she wanted to go back, take him to this small town, Illinois, and find the truth of why his sister's convicted killer never served any time and his case was overturned by the Illinois Supreme Court. Her story intercuts with V.L. Dean Younger, set in 1930, and a crime that affected her very, very deeply was the theft and embezzlement of her inheritance, which was going to free her from a very dysfunctional and abusive family. And those two stories intercut and interface. And yes, we're looking for the truth and redemption. And I invite you to read both stories to see if that unfolds.
Thank you, Georgia. And it's interesting to hear the theme of family, repeated. And what happens in the past does not stay in the past. It carries forward into the future generations.
Yes, and that it is the true crime was in my own family. I don't think I mentioned that.
Yeah, so adapted from a true story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, shifting gears a little bit now. What I love about this panel is that you all write from sort of different corners of it in terms of like if you think of a spectrum from cozy to carnage, your stories are inhabit various parts and maybe even lean a little bit more towards the cozy side for some of you. So I'd love to hear about how you decide or how you think about that element, like when you're writing crime fiction but you get to decide how graphic or violent or dark it is. So what's going through your creative mind as you're doing that? And I think we'll do the reverse order this time. We'll start with you, Georgia. Let me get you unmuted again. There you go.
There we go.
Oh,
Lofty aspirations. Because I really do feel it's a response as well as an opportunity to delve into secrets that have been harmful on both a personal level, a family level, a cultural level. And I think really the only way to try to find some kind of catharsis for that wounding and the healing is to expose. Was it brutal exposure? Was that the term that Jen mentioned when she was talking about the caterpillars? I think I would say the dark side fascinates me because it is exposure of some brutality that could be emotional, physical, and spiritual. And I have to say that as well as a responsibility and an opportunity, the writing of the younger girl and also one of my stories made in LA, I'll give Made in LA, Volume 6, Hollywood Adjacent, a little plus here. They really were inspired by the truth underneath it, and became a kind of spiritual adventure in kind of discovering that truth. And along the way, particularly with the younger girl, I found the truth was much more complicated than I could ever anticipate, because a member of my family was implicated in my aunt's killing and the theft of her inheritance.
Wow, yeah. So exposing those secrets and highlighting the truth that was previously hidden. Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's hear from you, Tori. About how do you
All right, then. Yeah. How I determine it, it really depends on the book and the characters, and that's the nature of things. So, for instance, Kaua'i Storm is the least of the graphic and gritty. The adventure and the action in Kaua'i Storm is more wilderness adventure, right? And she's a ranger, so doesn't that make sense? And yet there are thrilling elements where life is at risk. And so that dictates that. With the Lily Wong series, the titles are The Ninja Daughter, The Ninja's Blade, The Ninja Betrayed, The Ninja's Oath. There's ninja. And if there's ninja, there's going to be some violence. And not only that, I'm really going to want to balance the pacing and the fun of it with the little Easter eggs, for people in the martial arts to kind of go, oh yeah, I know what that is. That's super cool. So that's kind of a thing. But at the same time, I have a tremendous responsibility with Lily Wong because she works for a women's shelter, so there are elements of domestic violence. There are, crimes against women. There are sex traffickers. There are, one of the books, The Ninja's Blade, even has, teenagers. And so I have to be very careful. I want my readers to trust me, that I will care for them, that I will put them on the edge. I will have them feeling the emotion. I will have them worried, and I will have them turning the page, and I will have them on the edge, but I'm not going to push them over. I'm going to take care of you. I want my readers to trust me, because if my readers can trust me, then they can really live vicariously through this adventure, no matter how dark it gets, and know that they're going to be okay. And that's important to me.
That's so interesting that there's, a place where you won't go beyond because you care about the impact of your words and the story on the reader.
Well, it's an interesting thing because it's not necessarily I won't go beyond from the point of view of what happened or what's happening or the crime. It's not necessarily that there is a crime that's off limits. It's how I'm going to describe it and how I'm going to, because when I write, I want the readers, I'm a visual writer, I'm a cinematic writer, and I want you to feel the emotion. I want you to be in that fight, in that situation. So I may not tell it from a victim point of view, or I may not tell it from, you know what I mean? So I'm going to take care the level of graphic and also handling the point of view so that you can feel it, but like I said, I just, I don't like to get graphic for the sake of gratuitous violence, as they say, right?
I see. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. And Nick, how about you? I mean, I know that there is murder, but it's not necessarily very graphic, what you get into in the books. How do you decide what to show, what not to show?
Right. Well, I'm not a necessarily dark writer. I don't have I don't have graphic violence. I don't have any gore or anything like that. But my first series is what you might call a traditional mystery series, sort of Agatha Christie kind of mysteries. My second series definitely trends toward the cozy side, which there's humor and warmth in it. But
Mm.
there are murders that take place. And when you're talking about murder, you can't help but escape the darkness, because when somebody decides to kill somebody else, they go into a very dark place. A motive to kill somebody is not an ordinary thing. I think we would agree. And so that gets into the dark recesses of the past, of their relationship with the murder victim and all of that. So you can't really escape the darkness in that. And so my challenge, I think, it is to try to depict that as a writer in a way that is honest and that pays, that portrays it realistically, but does not get into, gratuitousness or anything like that. So I think that's kind of the tightrope I walk when I write these things, because I really do want to explore, well, what would motivate somebody to kill another person, which is never a pretty picture,
Right.
and yet do it in a way that isn't too off-putting or too alienating for people.
Yes, it's a dark, dark psychological space, and venturing too deeply into that could be
Yeah.
not appreciated. Okay, I get it. Thank you. And Jennifer, how about you? You have several different series. Are they of similar like cozy levels, or how would you describe that?
Pretty cozy, so I would say they're all pretty warm and fuzzy. I mean, my first, the Sassy Cat series has a cat, literally a telepathic sassy cat. And then the second one, LA Night Market, has two cousins, one from US, one from Hong Kong. They make food. There are recipes in the back of that series too. And then this current series, Magical Fortune Cookie, also with a touch of magic, but very much on that light, cozy piece of it. And I think it is hard, kind of like what Nicholas was saying about having these dark spaces. And as a cozy writer specifically, the violence is always off the page. And I really tread really carefully with that, because, death and dying, it's a really serious topic. And so whenever the murder actually happens, I give that space and that respect for that scene and the processing of it. But then the other parts are lighter. So there are the characters, and then what I love about the cozies are that uh, it's probably unrealistic, but you have the amateur sleuth at the heart of the cozy, right? And so they're the ones um, who are going to pick up on the clues. And it's usually a fair play mystery. So the reader's right there along picking up these clues, maybe, maybe not, and trying to solve it at the end. And I love that the amateur sleuth gets agency. And I think that's kind of an important piece. Like even with the crimes, um, not to say that in real life we would go and, take over a case, but we have that little bit of agency that we can kind of hold on to and try to kind of make things right, at least emotionally for ourselves. And that's what appeals to me about the cozy mystery genre. I think we have these dark crimes, but at the end there's resolution. There's always happy ending, justice is served, and the case is solved. And there's just, I think the idealism in that and the hope in that is is really powerful, I think, for people, for myself, even as a writer, and for readers.
Yeah, the self-actualization of the amateur sleuth is not something I'd thought about before. So I'm going to notice that
Oh,
now as I'm reading, to think about, well, this is really about them, having some agency too. That's great. Wonderful. Well, we're going to come back to this discussion a little bit later, but for now, I'd love to hear from each of you some excerpts and context about your recent or forthcoming work. And Jennifer, let's start with you.
Oh, okay. So I have book one is Ill-Fated Fortune, and then book two is called Star-Crossed Egg Tarts. Um, and this one, if you can't tell, it takes place at a wedding. So Felicity's asked to cater a wedding, and here's her egg tart cake. And I love this book because it's about different kinds of love. So you've got the romantic love, you've got parental love, you've got childhood love, and so I love all those themes in it. There's even her absentee father shows up, Felicity's father, so that's something interesting. So what happens at the wedding is that a groomsman goes missing. So I'll be reading this passage from the point of which the groomsman is missing. Okay. Oh, and I should say Felicity's best friend Kelvin is asked to sub in for the missing groomsman in the ceremony. While we've been searching for the missing groomsman, invited friends and family had shown up. Rows of white chairs were filled with people, and a nervous officiant stood near the flower arch. Colton, the groom, checked his watch again. 10 minutes passed. Time's up. Like a coach, he made everyone huddle around him. Okay, we've got this. My original intention had been to hang out in the main tent while all the marriage festivities went on, but now I knew I couldn't linger inside there. Watching Kelvin go down the aisle, I wouldn't miss it for the world. Instead, I'd pop in the reception tent, add the finishing touches to the cake, and spring back out. It was dark in the main tent, although someone had turned on the fairy lights strung around the perimeter of the space. At the opposite end from me, caterers were placing warming trays out for the buffet. I checked my egg tart tiers, which looked impeccable, and shifted the bride and groom figurines to a jaunty angle. I loved how they captured semblance of Leanne and Colton through 3D printing. Colton told me they'd gone to a studio to get full body scans to customize the toppers. I lit the votive candles around the display to give the cake a more ethereal glow. The lattice of the lace bowl holders let the light dance out in interesting and mesmerizing patterns. Strains of orchestral music started reaching me from outside. Processional. I better book it to watch them. I sprinted out of the tent and scooted into a seat in the back row, right as Kelvin took a step onto the white runner leading to the arch where the officiant stood. Good thing the music had been a soothing, slow piece. The paired attendants walking down the aisle had to coordinate their steps to the leisurely song, so I'd made it with enough time to admire Kelvin's entry. Kelvin played his role impressively, even though I heard a few people mutter, "Who's that?" He and Haley marched in unison, arms hooked together. She seemed absolutely delighted, her eyes glistening, and Kelvin appeared pleased as well. He always loved swooping in and saving the day. The wedding went off without any problems, even though the officiant glanced down at his notes a lot for reference. A photographer bounced up and down the aisle, trying to capture candid shots. And in the end, Leanne and Colton got married without any fuss. No objections, even from the parents. Everyone was soon dismissed to the main tent for the reception. As a vendor, I got last place in the buffet line, which featured trays of different kinds of vegan, vegetarian, and meat dumplings. A dumpling bar. As predicted, I got the dregs, the dumplings that got burned, or ones with the fillings gone. Whatever. It wasn't always about the food, except for the dessert. Speaking of which, Leanne and Colton had made their way over to my egg tarts. They did a thank you speech to the guests and then each lifted up an egg tart and smushed it in the other's face. Egg tarts are not cake-like enough to fully squash on contact or pie-like enough to spread on someone's face, so they kind of crumbled to the ground. But it looked fun. I noticed the photographer snapping pics near them. He hadn't even taken a break to get food, so I considered myself lucky. Once the newly married couple stepped away from the table, I put down my plate and sprang into action. I secured the serving trays that I'd stashed and brought them over to the cake table. People must have admired my egg tarts while I'd been moping from my seat in the back because my stack of business cards had dwindled. Excellent. What wasn't excellent was that I'd stepped on a tart. My heel must have gone down in a creamy custard center because my foot felt wet. I reached down and in the dimness of the tent noticed a rose petal. But it wasn't white like those pinned to the groomsmen's shirts. It was scarlet. Strange. I picked it up. Nope, I've been wrong. It was dripping scarlet with blood. I screamed.
Well, I want to know what happens next, and I'm also very hungry.
There's recipes in the back.
I love that. Yeah. And I want to go to Pixie. I know it's a made up town, but I do want to go to Pixie and eat all these wonderful foods. So thank you for that, Jennifer.
Sure.
Nicholas, how about you go next and share with us?
Sure. Um, I'll read an excerpt from the second book in my Walk Through England series, which is called A Lethal Walk in Lakeland. And just as a little preface, in the first book, which took place in Devon, Chase, the main character in the process of investigating the murder, met the county coroner. And the coroner was a man named Mike, and they struck up a romantic relationship, which continues in the second book. So they're kind of sustaining a long distance relationship. So he comes into play in this story. In this book, there is a family on the walk, and they're a family from Texas. They're called the Uptons, and one of them gets killed. So in this excerpt, Chase has just finished investigating one of the hotel rooms of one of the family members. Press coat in hand, I went off in search of Billy. When my phone chimed, it was Mike, apologizing that his analysis had taken so long to wrap up, but he was finally finished and heading my way. I broke out into a smile and I continued my search. Not finding Billy in the bar, I figured she was in her room. So I went to mine, took a shower, and changed into fresh clothes. It gave me time to think about what I'd found in Pratt's pocket. Fiona hadn't been poisoned with yew berries, but what were they doing in Pratt's pocket? Someone knocked on the door. I tossed Pratt's jacket on the bed and opened the door to reveal Mike, smiling sheepishly. I pulled him inside, locked the door shut, and held him close as we kissed. Wow, he said when I released him. If I'd known that would be my welcome, I would have said the hell with it and left early. But the staff wasn't used to working under a new boss, and many of the tests took longer than expected. Did you discover anything else? I asked. Mike sat on the bed. No, there were no signs of a struggle, no signs of forced intercourse or any serious health conditions. The Avitrol was clearly the cause of death. This was good news. This case already had too many complications. So your job here is finished? I asked. He reached over and ran his fingers through my beard. I can't get over how this always seems softer than it looks. I soak it every day in goat urine, I said. His face clouded. I laughed to let him know I was joking, and he gave my shoulder a small punch. Back to your question, the answer is almost, he said. I'm finished except for completing the dreaded paperwork, which shouldn't take too long. I can do that tomorrow morning. But let's not talk shop for the rest of the evening. Sounds good, I said, stroking his face. The question is, he said, will you be able to get your mind off the case? I remember how committed you were to finding the killer down in Devon. I moved my mouth close to his. What case? I don't know what you're talking about. We went back to kissing and things started to get more heated. I certainly was ready for that, but I reluctantly pulled away and suggested we hold off until we had some dinner. What can I tell you? I said. At my age, I need some extra nourishment. He smiled and squeezed my hand. Enough of that my age nonsense, all right? Nothing wrong with loading up on carbs before the big event. Even teenage athletes do that. Thankfully, most of the others are going into the village, I said, so we can eat in the hotel dining room without interruptions. I gave Mike a quick kiss and picked up Pratt's jacket as we left the room. Downstairs, we found my friend Billy waiting near the entrance, dressed for dinner. She greeted Mike with a broad smile and a hug. Pratt caught up with me and asked if I wanted to join him and the others at the Royal Oak. I agreed only on the condition that there would be no oompa bands or mob scenes. Or murders, I added. Mike eyed me. You see, you can't let go of it. That was the last time, I promised. To Billy, I said, speaking of promises, you need to promise me to be careful tonight. Don't worry, she said. I'll keep a close watch over my beer. I won't let anyone touch it. I don't mean that, I said. The time period right after a murder is a crucial one. Murderers get desperate. They make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? Saying too much? Saying too little? Acting differently? Trust me, she said. I'll keep my eyes and ears open at all times. I gave her a nod. Thanks. And stay with the others at all times as well. The Uptons suddenly were upon us. I was surprised to see Joe with Carol, although he still had his hollow, haunted look. I introduced Mike as a close friend, but from the knowing grins I got from Carol and Pratt, I could tell they knew he was more than that. I handed Pratt his jacket. He wasn't wearing his 10-gallon hat tonight. I was wondering what happened to them with that, he said. He took the jacket with no apparent concern. Are you guys coming with us? I said that we hadn't seen one another for a while and wanted to catch up. Once they left, Mike and I went into the dining room and selected a table in a small nook, lit by a slim candle. I reached out and held his hand. It's good to finally be with you in the flesh, I said. After a pause, I added, that sounded a little bit more prurient than I intended. Oh, not prurient enough, I would say, he responded. I'd forgotten how strongly Mike attracted me, physically and in every other way. Yes, we'd grown close over the previous year through phone and Skype calls. But sitting across from him, looking at his rumpled salt and pepper hair, lopsided grin, bushy eyebrows, and gleaming emerald eyes, I became overwhelmed by a combination of love and lust. Had I ever felt that way about Doug? Most likely, although the lust part faded over time. Physical attraction is merely a chemical reaction anyway, some scientists tell us. As much as I treasured my years with Doug, there was something entirely different about Mike. Not necessarily better, I had to remind myself, but different. Was it merely the novelty of a new love? I hoped it was much more than that.
Thank you, Nick. I'm envious of your walks through England to research this book. Both the physical walks and the imaginative walks. It's a good place to be, and it's delightful to see the relationship between Chase and Mike progress. So thank you for sharing that. Tori, could we hear from you?
Absolutely. So I'm going to read from Kaua'i Storm. I have a short excerpt and then an even shorter excerpt. So I have two. So Makalani has just come home, as I mentioned, from Oregon. And this is the first time that she's running into some of her family members. Makalani hefted her camping backpack onto her shoulders and headed down the gravel path toward the steps as her two aunties, one large and one small, stormed out of the front door and onto the lanai. Tutu's younger and larger daughter whirled on the elder, hands on hips and nostrils flared. Shame on you, Miley! How you let your son spread this junk about mine? Solomon would never hurt one child. Never. Oh, yeah? Auntie Miley said, challenging her younger sister the way a terrier nips at a boar. The police say otherwise. Your precious Solomon is a drunk and a degenerate. No for big words in me, Tira. Your Japanese husband and holy daughter-in-law no make you better than us. Your Mo'opuna barely get any Hawaiian in her. She just one skinny, stuck-up slut. Whoa! Makalani said, hurrying up the steps. What's going on? Auntie Kaulana swatted her hand in the air. You never heard? This one's granddaughter went missing. Run away, more like. Or taken by your son, Auntie Miley said. Makalani gasped. Solomon? What are you saying, Auntie? The police think he abducted her? That's crazy. Solomon adores Becky. Auntie Miley scoffed. Exactly my point. You Lola or what? Auntie Colonna said. Everybody knows your granddaughter stay crushing on my son. It been like that since junior high. Every time she comes home for one visit, she stick on his skin like sweat. Auntie Miley crossed her arms as though her sister had proven her point. And now they gone. Not together. My Solomon is 22 and full grown. He can go where he like. This trouble on your Becky. Makalani's father yelled, "Knock it off already!" He walked up the slope on the Mackay side, the ocean side of the house, carrying fishing gear and a string of papio. The jackfish looked tiny and pale, swinging alongside Papa's powerful sun-blackened legs. The sisters turned their backs on one another and marched across the lanai to their respective sides of the house. Auntie Kaulana toward the mountain, Auntie Miley toward the sea. Makalani dropped her backpack on the deck and jumped down the steps. Her father laughed. "Hey, little girl, when you get home." "Just now." She reached her arms around his massive chest for a hug. Although she was tall and sturdy, almost 6 feet tall, Makalani felt tiny in her father's arms. She could smell the ocean on his skin, baked into his pores by the sun, but his true warmth radiated from the love in his heart. She breathed in the comforting presence of him and knew she had truly come home. So that's kind of the family reception and the climate that she is walking into. Now, you may have noticed that there's a pidgin English in some of these characters, not Makalani. She's been on the mainland a long time, and she doesn't usually do that. But different characters do. And for me to tell a story that I felt was authentic and true to my people, locals living in Hawaii, I really needed to do that. And so my purpose for that was to bring the readers in, to welcome you. E komo mai, come on in, be part of Hawaii. And so to that end, I also incorporate some Olelo Hawaii, which is the native Hawaiian language. And sometimes I will go out of my way to define it, as I said, oceanside, Makai, right? And sometimes I won't. Sometimes it's contextual. So I'm just going to read literally just a couple of paragraphs. And this is from Tutu. Tutu is the 85-year-old grandmother, okay? And she is the keeper of the traditions and the keeper of the language. And Makalani finds her at the kalo patch. That's what we call taro. So there she is. Tutu waded in the edge of the road, placed the plant carefully on the bank, and rose to her full majestic height. Standing thigh-deep in muddy water, her strong arms at her side, she took a deep breath and began a welcoming chant. Her low voice vibrated with an i'i so slow it resonated inside Makalani's bones, calling for attention as Tutu sent her aloha on the breeze. "O nauna I kahalame kalehua, e halelehua no iana kanoe." Makalani breathed in the music of her native language, infused with Tutu's loving intent. Although not fluent, Makalani remembered the meaning behind the beautiful words. Fragrant with the breath of hala and lehua, this is the sight I long to see. Tears welled in Makalani's eyes as Tutu continued until the final aloha e. And that's a little bit from Kaua'i Storm.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tori. You described yourself as a cinematic visual writer, but there were so many sensations in that, from sound to feeling to Well done. I appreciate that so
Oh,
much.
mahalo. And and of course, when you're reading it, I don't expect readers to be sounding it out or singing or whatever, but when you see the Hawaiian language written,
Mm.
there's a beauty to just seeing it. But if you really want to hear it, I was hired to narrate my own audiobook.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Yeah, and so that's a truly immersive experience.
Yes. Well, congratulations. That's
Well, thank you.
wonderful. And, I just saw on your website, maybe we'll talk about it later. We'll talk a little more about Hawaii Rage.
Ooh, yes, please.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tori. And Georgia, we'll hear from you. Would you like to read something from the younger girl?
I will, and I wanted to just note some of the things we share in common as authors on this panel, and
Mm.
then other things that we have different approaches to. So I was hearing Jennifer and Nick and Tori speak. I realized that I have been asked a number of times about whether or not there's going to be a sequel to The Younger Girl, with Joanna being the amateur sleuth in uncovering yet another family crime or the truth behind it, or who the true let's say the true villains were. And as you know, I've written a lot of series for television as a writer and producer, but The Younger Girl is a standalone. However, there's a connection, there are several connections to my next book, which is Angels in the Snow. It's also based on a true crime, a 1980s crime in Los Angeles that also made the front pages. This is of the LA Times up through the San Francisco Chronicle. And actually, my family did know the young man who was accused of the crime, of the death of a young woman dying during a one-night stand in the Beverly Hills Hotel. So yes, it was a true crime. And also, one other thing that this book has that The Younger Girl also has is magical realism. Magical realism. So like all of my fellow panelists, I have no interest in showing graphic violence, and I don't. I am a believer in suspense on every page, cliffhanger on every at the end of every chapter. And I'm also, what I love to read is what I love to write, and that is a sense of what is real. So that's why I use the word magical realism. Are you reading a passage that is a dream? Is it a nightmare? Is part of it true? And so that's the same, those are the same themes I'm incorporating in Angels in the Snow. And this passage I'm going to read you from The Younger Girl has some elements of that as well. I'm introducing you to Owen, who is the father of Joanna, and also the younger brother of Eldine Younger. This begins in his broken down little ranch house in the Coachella Valley. He's staring at his television and the broken picture tube, and then suddenly the screen fills. It fills with a laughing image from long ago. A lovely young girl reaching out to him with open arms. He sucked in a sharp breath, then blinked. Her arms opened wider. He blinked again. The image disappeared, but her presence still held him. For months now, Aldine's cat eyes had been haunting him with an unholy force that rattled the old man's reason. He feared God, not the devil. Why was he being punished? He could not comprehend, but punished he was. Despite praying almost every night, he suffered the embrace of a ghost. And then the memories began to come back. Some nights, after his mother retired with his baby brother tucked into a big bed upstairs, Owen sneaked out of his room to wait for his sister's return. Once in a blue moon, magic happened when Eldine agreed to cuddle him to sleep. Sometimes she played with his hair, twisting one strand after another between her fingers, as reverent as a nun caressing rosary beads. Only then could he drift into reverie, safe in her arms. But one night she came in to hold him was different. Tossing and turning, she grabbed a fistful of his hair as if she were trying to pull it out by the roots. He yelped in surprise like a dog beaten by his master and pleaded with her to stop. She kept pulling. He kept screaming until his mother came running as fast as her short, fat body could manage. Let Junior be now, you hear me? His sister's lipstick-smeared mouth mumbled incoherently as she clasped her brother tight. Aldine seemed to be in a trance no one could break. He could still smell her perfume, feel her sharp pink nails digging into his scalp. I said, let him go, Aldine. Never one to suffer foolish behavior, his mother cracked her daughter across the mouth. All he could remember after that was Aldine being dragged away, his mother beating on her, yelling about how one drunk in the family is one drunk too many, and Aldine knew better, and Lord, why had she been burdened with such an ungrateful daughter? Lord, why? And next morning, his formula was still swollen. When their mother turned her back to stir the oatmeal on the stove, Aldine winked at her younger brother. He mustered a shy smile and winked back. 4 years later, she turned up dead, abandoned roadkill on a frozen county blacktop. And this is, in the back, this is Aldine younger at the age of 14. That's how my father remembered her. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Georgia. Yeah, it's so interesting to think about the blend of almost historical fiction and then sort of contemporary noir
Yeah.
and those threaded through in this book.
It's blended genre. That's exactly what it is. Yes.
Well, I want to maybe stick on that for our next discussion point around where you find inspiration in the real world to bring into your fiction, or do you? Georgia, for you, I know this is like true crime happened
Yes,
and actually with a connection to your family specifically. Is that something that you look to those events to fuel the fiction that you write?
When I find it, I mean, actually, the younger girl was, as they say in the entertainment business, in development for over 15 years. I had written another book, political military thriller that was inspired by an HBO film of mine and very much based on true events south of the border. But I was a history major in school, and I've always loved the power of true stories. So I would say every story that I've ever written for film or television or literary books have been inspired by either something I experienced myself or someone I know experienced. That's, I think, where the real power of storytelling lies. So that's what I look for, and that's what I incorporate. And also part of that is in Little Egypt, the story that's made in LA, because that was also partially inspired by a real incident.
Interesting. So Jennifer, Nicholas, and Tori, is real world crime something that you look to for inspiration for your writing?
Let me just leap into that. No, I don't really pay much attention to true crime or any of that. I mean, I think what informs my writing is just the world in general. I mean, I try to keep my antenna up and know what's going on around me. And there's just so much. If you're a writer, there's so much that comes in from various sources to inform your writing. And certainly I'm I'm motivated by my own identity as an older gay man, and that plays into my writing, but I try not to rely too much on that. I try to just kind of open up and say, okay, here are the characters, here's a situation, what are the various factors that can influence them? And there's just so much, we are tuned in to so much input in our world, whether through our friends and family and the media and whatever. We just could take that all in, and it just churns into, if we're creative people, it churns inside of us and then comes out in stories. And the storytelling is really what motivates me.
I love this question because there's so many different approaches, and I get to hear, possible new paths for myself for my creative work. How do I want to be antenna up or like deep dive kind of researcher for a book? Tori and Jennifer, what do you think?
Well, it's interesting with me. All of my books begin with research. I know usually I have a place or I have a concept. Um, with Kaua'i Storm, I wanted to set this story on what was happening to Kanaka Maoli, Native Hawaiians in Hawaii today.
Hmm.
So I called up a friend of mine. I went to school with her at Punahou, but her family was from Kauai, and she's like an activist and everything. I'm like, talk to me, what's going on? And that's when she told me about the Hawaiian homeland situation. And so we talked for hours, and then I did a deep dive for all of that historical information and what was going on, and integrated. From there came the plot.
Oh,
I did
interesting.
the exact same thing with The Ninja's Blade. That was the second book. In The Ninja Daughter, I had a little bit of sex trafficking going in there, but I wanted to do a deep dive into commercial sex trafficking of youth in Los Angeles. And so I started that book by researching that. And from there came these characters, these different teenage characters who, through their lives, through their place, I could address all the different ways that these young girls were lured, coerced, forced, kidnapped, all these different things. From there came the characters, from there came the plot.
Hmm.
With the Ninja Blade, I knew that I wanted Lily to go home with her mother to Hong Kong, and her mother was in finance, and so I had to research finance, international finance. What did I know about international finance? I learned, and also integrating, triads and things like that. And then the fourth book I knew was going to go to Shanghai ever since I went to visit my son there. And I'm like, I gotta go there, right? And so I began that book by researching the history of Shanghai. And
Hmm.
I created a lineage for the key character. All of my books have a lineage. And The Ninja's Oath is all around Li Chang's lineage, and it goes back many generations. And his lineage speaks to the history of Shanghai from the Japanese occupation going forward, and also the criminal activities and the triads, and then, but it's not historical, it's his family. And I did that because I wanted to find out what part of his family was going to be germane to the story. And as it turned out, the whole family.
Hmm.
That was what was going on. And from there came issues of fentanyl and then Japan and all these things. Um, so every single book, I have a standalone Dance Among the Frames that's set in Brazil.
Hmm.
All of that began by researching Brazil. So I like to really integrate my fiction into fact. So that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, and it seems like listening to you, it seems like it's, you're researching to authentically and truly represent these pieces that you learn about, but it also seems like it inspires you and gives you like creative energy and juice, you might say, to like,
Oh, it really does. And it's all integrated into my characters and the
hmm.
plot, So the only thing that you're going to learn about, you're going to learn about it through the characters and their histories and everything. And so, yeah, so it's a big part. I like that part. And Georgia, as to the graphic violence, oh, I had a reviewer compare the big battle scene in The Ninja's Oath. They literally said it would they compared it to like Kill Bill and all of that stuff. So they're like, oh yeah, it would make Tarantino blush. So yeah, I write violence. I write violence, but I also take care of my audience.
Well, yes, I think that's what I was saying, that we agreed on that. And yeah, and location is the first character, is it not?
Oh, it
Oh yeah, I
Location
surely
is
love
is
always
for
the first
me.
I love a strong
character.
setting, yeah.
Yeah.
And I can see that in each of ours. And also, we're all very invested in character transformation.
Oh
I mean,
yes.
in my thesis classes at USC, I never used the word plot. I said, I
Hmm.
will never use the word plot in any of these thesis classes for your MFA work. We use the word character in action. The choices
Okay.
that every character makes and the consequences of that choice. And that just gives you so much material to work in. Yeah. And you come truer to the beginning, which is the character spirit, the character spirit of the character and the soul, and where you want to take them.
It's a different frame for it, and I like that because often, when plot becomes disconnected from character transformation, it becomes boring. You're like, and then they did this, and then they did that, and then they did this, but if it's not like part of what that character needs to solve or overcome, becomes.
It is about overcoming, isn't it, Cody? So often it's about confronting and overcoming.
Yeah, Jennifer, I want to give you some space to answer this, pulled from true life, because I know you have the recipes, which are those find their way into the real world too. But do you find inspiration in true crime or the real world to pull into your books?
I have inspiration folders. I put a lot of things in there, but it's kind of like what Georgia and Nicholas were saying about character. And just I start with the character. In my cozy mysteries, it's all the character. It's all either the main character, and I do pull from my identity. I pulled a lot of the Asian Americanness. I felt was very symbolic and paralleled like the fortune cookie, which is why I have the, the Magical Fortune Cookies series. And it stemmed from like a childhood field trip to the fortune cookie factory.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, in Chinatown, in San Francisco, Chinatown. And so, and I do also research, Tori, but my research is like the nice end where I go back and then I go to the factory and I eat the fortune cookies, right? So it's a different kind of research.
Your research sounds like a lot of fun.
Can I come with you on your next research trip, please?
Yeah, so that's what I pulled in real life. And then I could twist it because, mine's got magic, like really like the magical realism, but really like enchanted pastries and everything. Although the recipes are real, they are pulled, like I have to make them in my kitchen and I have my family, test them. And there we go.
I love that. Well, we kind of touched on it and I maybe want to stick on it a little bit longer. This question of setting and how you craft the settings for your stories, how you bring those to life, and maybe tell us a little bit about the setting and like what kind of creative decisions were you making as you were trying to bring those, into the book?
Well, okay, I'll start again. My first series takes place in England, which is because I love England. I have this attraction to England. And so I knew I wanted to set my mysteries in the countryside of England. And that conjures up a whole milieu that is unlike anywhere else on the world. I mean, I go there frequently. And so there's a specialness about that place that I mean, obviously I haven't been in every place of the world, but I've been around. And so I tried to draw from what I took from my experiences in that location and try to infuse the stories with that. And so setting does become a character in the book just as much as the other people do. And I think that's very important. I think you need to pay attention to that. In my second series, it takes place in California on the mid-California coast. Obviously, I'm familiar with that.
Another very special place. I'll just put in a note about that.
Okay. I'm sorry, what?
I just wanted to say that the Central California coast is a very special place too. Yeah, sorry, very fond of it.
No, it is. It is. And so, it's not, I don't pick the places that I set my stories in arbitrarily. They really do. I really do want them to be appropriate to the story I'm telling and also be a character in the story.
Yeah. And because your walking series is on foot most of the time, I think that creates a really distinctive kind of milieu or like vibe for the story, right? It's not cars driving around everywhere.
Right.
It's not like planes, trains, and automobiles. It's like really pedestrian in a way.
Well, when you're walking, you do experience your environment differently than if you're in a car or if you're in a bus or a train or whatever. And you experience nature and animal life and all of that around you. And that's one of the wonderful things about walking.
Yeah.
Even Southern California, you do experience a lot of that.
Right, right. The same place could be very differently experienced depending on your mode of, going around. I've always wanted to like well, let's not get into that, but like Los Angeles, WeHo, night and day, very different places. Right? They
Very,
have
yeah.
different feelings to them. Um, Jennifer,
I think, oh,
your setting is in the Central Valley, a fictional small town, sort of nestled to Stockton, I thinking for your most recent series. But then you also write about LA too. What are you thinking about when you're trying to bring those settings to life?
It's usually familiarity. So the last two
haha,
series are LA
yeah.
adjacent because I'm in LA. But this one with the small fictional town, well, first it was a nod to just the idea of, cozy mysteries generally have like small villages, small
Hmm.
towns, and it's a little bit of a love letter, to that idea and that trope. And then also, I grew up in Fresno, so I kind of know that Central Valley area. And uh, I wanted to also pull in that location since I haven't really seen it done before.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I do put little Easter eggs in there. So like some of the places are made up, but a couple of places, are really real places that you could visit, whether it's like restaurants or different sites in the area. So that's how I kind of, had my inspiration for the setting and wanted to make it, realistic, but also do the small town on the side so that I could have my multiple murders that happen there.
Right.
Yeah. I think
Well,
it's the, yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Tori.
Oh,
I'll go when you finish.
okay, okay. Since we're talking about West Hollywood, and that's our host. The first two Lily Wong series are set in L.A. Lily lives above her North Dakota North Dakota Norwegian father's authentic Chinese restaurant, and she lives on the second floor. And it's in Culver City,
Hmm.
and one very near the Sony studios. And so those are some of his clients. But Lily is one of these people, she can drive, but she refuses to buy a car. So every now and again, she'll, borrow the delivery car, but mostly she gets around Los Angeles either on mass transit or on a racing bike.
A daredevil.
Yes. This gal does not like sitting around, I mean, she'll even like go over the pass into the valley on a racing bike, then call an Uber, get to, Arcadia where her parents live, and then hop on mass transit and get back to Culver City. And so it's an unusual thing for a character in LA to do, but it really gives a very different sense of it. So, I lived in, LA for almost 40 years, and I really wanted to pull out a lot of, unusual areas, going up Yerba Buena in, Malibu. I wanted to go into the valley. I wanted to go into Arcadia. I wanted to go into, Cerritos. I wanted to, go into some of these places that, people, might not, usually visit in fiction. And so that was something that was very cool to me. With the Kaua'i Storm, we're going to a lot of areas in Kauai, but I really wanted to start it in the very small town of Anahola, and then going into Kapa'a, which is sort of a very small touristy town, and then in because it's wilderness into the forests and Kapa'a state park and waterfalls and all these things. But when I'm writing about Kauai and nature and the environment, the way in which I write about Hawaii is different than the way in which I wrote about Brazil, the way in which I wrote when I was writing about Shanghai or Hong Kong, or especially Los Angeles, because Hawaiians view nature differently. We view our water and our oceans and our plants, the way our relationship to those things is different. And so the way in which I describe it needs to be different because I want the readers to feel that.
Interesting. Yeah.
It sounds like a number of us have written about small towns, Jennifer and Tori, and most of the younger girl takes place in a small town in central Illinois, and I was raised in the Illinois until I was about 12 years old. So I know those small towns well, and they have their charms and their serenity and also their secrets. And I also see a commonality between our choices of time and place. Time or era is also a character. And for instance, with Eldine Younger, she was very much a young woman of her time, really hungering for freedom, a young flapper, and she was breaking rules. And there were consequences for the rules that she broke. And one thing I really didn't fully realize until I delved into a lot of the property records in the Illinois courthouse and some of our family history was that my father was first generation American. It never seemed that significant to me before. But when I learned about his patrol side and his patrol side, and the fact that it was a blended family of 5 children, I could see how the fact that he was first generation, and then the fact that his family was struggling to establish themselves as accepted, respected Americans who were not as poor as they appeared, would have influenced a lot of character choices in the family. So discoveries are made.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, so maybe I have a question now about crime and motives, building on kind of what you were saying, Georgia, around poverty, for example. One of the big motivators for a lot of crimes and thinking about all of your work is sometimes it's about property or money or
Right.
that
Yes.
piece of it.
Yes.
Vitally important to to our lives, but also to the motives that may motivate wrongdoing.
Right.
We are coming up towards the end of the hour, so I have a few more questions that I can pose, but I want to open it up to you, our viewers who are on YouTube, or to our panelists if they have questions for each other. Now that you've gotten to know each other a bit and your work, if you wanted to ask each other questions, I respect that and want to open that to you.
I have a question for Jennifer. What do you want us to, those of us who don't know Fresno, what do you want us to know about Fresno? I'm sure you're writing this in your pages, but I have a friend who lives near Fresno, but I drive through on the way to visit her. So tell me what I don't know.
Well, I think sometimes I see a lot of some negative portrayals, so I like to highlight the positive things. So
Yeah.
whether it's like the produce or now that it's growing, there's a lot more diversity and a lot of different
Mhm.
activities that you can do. And then there are just like things that are unusual, I think, too. Like we have underground gardens because it's just so hot in the Central
Oh,
Valley.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
interesting.
yeah, so there was
Wow.
a immigrant who made these gardens are underground to escape the heat. And
Oh
I
my.
mean, he had a
Wow.
vision for like, oh, we'll have a hotel, we'll have all this fancy stuff. And it didn't quite get to that, level of establishment. But it's kind of just interesting to have these little tidbits about the city.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah. So you could still go through the garden,
Yeah, you can
Jennifer?
still, there's a
Ah,
tour and you can like look through like what they're trying to build and cool down a little bit.
There you go,
that's
Georgia. That's the
good.
thing you never knew
It's
about
good to know.
Fresno.
I did not. Thank you. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued.
Well, I think maybe final question for the night before we wrap up would be, is there anything that we can celebrate with you tonight?
Well, you could celebrate the publication of the
That's what
first
I'm
of
looking
my
for.
next series, which is next month. So that's something to celebrate.
Do you have a date? Tell us the date. We'll keep an eye
I
out
don't,
for it.
I don't have a date. It's in January.
Okay.
It'll be released in January.
And the
So
title.
it's well, they're takeoffs on popular songs. So the first one is called You've Lost That Livin' Feeling.
That's hilarious.
That's good.
Well, Cody, as you mentioned, I have Hawaii Rage coming out in May. And if you go to my website, torieldridge.com, you'll see the cover right on the front. And oh man, I'm loving this cover. So the whole book is about Paniolo, and that is Hawaiian cowboys. And I really wanted to dive in. You were talking about fact and fiction. I did like all this research because I'm like, wow, Hawaiian cowboys are so cool. And most people don't even know they exist, let alone that, we had a whole ranching, we have a huge ranching industry, especially on the Big Island.
I was
So
going to
you're
say,
gonna,
is it on the Big Island? Is that where most of the story takes place?
yes, yes, yes. Makalani ends up on there, and of course she's got a big extended family, and one of her cousins, his wife, her father dies in a really gruesome, wild way involving a bull.
Oh,
Anyway, and so Makalani, she's working at a Heiau, a national historic site, and she's kind of bored and everything. She likes to work, and her cousin knows this, and the family is kind of going through this stuff, and he kind of thinks it would be really cool if he suggests she go work over there, and so she does. She starts spending her day off working over there at the ranch, and so it's like Hawaiian cowboy ranching adventure and everything, but it starts with this gruesome murder, and she's got to figure out what's going on before anybody else gets hurt, or worse. So, yeah, I'm pretty
very
excited
exciting.
about this one.
Very excited. We're excited
Funny.
to celebrate that with you.
Okay, I have one too. I have also in January, like Nicholas, January 27th. It's the third in my Magical Fortune Cookie series. It's called Telltale Treats. And it takes place in a bed and breakfast in Pixie, and Felicity's asked to cater treats there. And it's the high school reunion, but
Oh,
an intimate high school reunion of a small group of women. And they get together, and the queen bee ends up dead. And
uh-oh.
Felicity's also there, so she's kind of pulled into figure things out.
How fun. How fun. January is going to
Um,
be a reading time of year.
I'm going to give a shout out to our illustrious host and moderator here, Cody, and
Yeah.
say I'm still celebrating the July publication of Made in LA, Hollywood
Oh, yeah.
Adjacent,
Yeah.
in which I have one of my favorite short stories that is now being developed as a novella, but we'll talk about that later. And I also just want to give a real heartfelt appreciation for the power of storytelling. I have a dear friend in the Authors Guild who once said she no longer had to pay for a therapist because she was working out all of her issues on the page. I don't know if I would
I don't
dare
know
to
if
say
that
I
works
worked
all
out
the time every time.
all my issues on the page, but let me say with absolute transparency, it's a wonderful opportunity, and it's a great way to just experience the joy of creativity and healing things
Yes.
that need to be addressed.
We can certainly try and
We can
sometimes
try.
succeed.
We can try. Better to try than to not.
Well, I am so grateful to you, Jennifer, Nicholas, Tori, and Georgia, for being with us tonight, for sharing your spirit and your creativity with us. We are looking forward to reading all of your work for a long time to come. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much,
Thank
Cody,
you
for
Having
so
inviting us.
us.
Mahalo.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, Jennifer. Bye.
Okay, so I'm
Bye.
ending the stream, stopping the recording. There we go.